Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling the harsh reality behind Robert Greene's Law 7, starting with a pretty bitter truth about success. This law, straight out of his famous book, The 48 Laws of Power, is widely considered one of the coldest, most ruthless lessons out there. And honestly, it's for a very good reason. It directly attacks a core belief that almost all of us hold dear. Okay, let's dive right into this. We all desperately want to believe that hard work alone guarantees recognition, right? We're taught from a super young age that if you just put your head down, grind it out, and do good work, the world is eventually going to notice and reward your genius. It's a really nice, comforting, even cute idea. But here is the brutal reality. History proves this is a dangerously naive way of thinking. In fact, history eats people who rely solely on hard work for breakfast. Section 1. The myth of hard work. Section 2. Tesla versus Edison. So to really understand why raw effort doesn't always equal a massive reward, we need to travel back to late 1800s New York and look at two absolute titans, Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison. Now, Tesla was this brilliant Serbian immigrant who basically operated as a lone genius. He brought incredible, world-changing brains and just sheer exhausting physical labor to the table, working these absolutely insane 18-hour days with 0 weekends. But Edison? Edison was already a famous inventor, and he focused heavily on systems and organization. He didn't try to be the guy doing everything himself in the lab. Instead, he used systems to leverage other people's time, brains, and energy. To put this in perspective, when Tesla was first hired, he improved Edison's primitive machines so dramatically that Edison's whole company benefited. Edison was thrilled, and he promised an absolute fortune, $50,000, to Tesla if he could completely redesign the electrical system. Now, back then, that was a staggering amount of money. So Tesla took the bait. He worked day and night for an entire year, pushing himself right to the brink of collapse, and he actually succeeded. But when he went back to the boss expecting his hard-earned payout, Edison completely broke the promise. No way, right? Well, Edison literally laughed off this massive debt like it was just a funny joke. He looked right at Tesla and told him, "Tesla, you don't understand American humor." Instead of the absolute fortune he had rightfully earned, Edison tossed Tesla a tiny, incredibly insulting raise. And you know, that single cruel betrayal changed the course of history. It was the match that sparked the bitter, legendary War of Electricity. Because the core of their war ultimately came down to fundamental differences in strategy. Tesla believed the future belonged to his new invention, alternating current, or AC. Edison, on the other hand, backed his own direct current, or DC. From a purely technological standpoint, Tesla's AC was vastly superior. I mean, it could power entire cities efficiently, whereas Edison's DC only worked over really short distances. Tesla was right. But, as we're learning, being right and actually winning are completely different sports. Edison knew this, so instead of making a better product, he launched a ruthless public smear campaign against AC. He literally electrocuted animals in public to make AC look terrifying, and he manipulated newspapers to spread fear. Edison proved that controlling the narrative and focusing on perception will almost always beat pure invention. And the hits just kept coming. Even though Tesla finally found backing from businessman George Westinghouse, which is what made his AC system the foundation of the modern electricity you and I use today, Tesla repeatedly had to sit back and watch others take the credit for his genius. Invention alone just wasn't enough. Like, for example, the whole world generally credits Guglielmo Marconi with inventing the radio, right? But Marconi actually used Tesla's earlier patents and research to do it. Just imagine the total frustration of repeatedly building the future from scratch, only to watch other guys become insanely famous and wealthy using your work. Section 3. The power of leverage. Because of this exact dynamic, Tesla tragically died broke, isolated and feeding pigeons in New York parks. Meanwhile, Edison became a towering, almost mythological historical legend. It just goes to show, society remembers brands far more than it remembers the nameless laborers behind them. This crucial point is perfectly captured in a super clever African folktale that Robert Greene shares. A tiny tortoise walks right up to a massive elephant and claims to be just as strong. The elephant obviously laughs in his face, so the tortoise proposes a tug of war. The lingering question was simple: who is actually the strongest? Well, here is exactly how the tortoise pulled off the win. He secretly tied one end of a long rope to a hippopotamus down in the river and the other end to the elephant up on land. Then he told them both to pull. The two massive giants pulled furiously against each other, neither of them able to move the other even a single inch. And meanwhile, the tortoise just sat back in the bushes and did absolutely nothing, letting them both assume his incredible strength was holding them back. The tortoise didn't use a single ounce of muscle, he used leverage. Leverage is the act of using teams, borrowing knowledge, delegating labor, and combining other people's talents instead of trying to do everything yourself. It's not laziness, folks, it's pure power. Section 4. Rules of the game. Now, Green's Law isn't just some cynical instruction to go out and steal everything from everyone. It's actually a structural framework for organizing people. First off, protect your work from being stolen. If you create something valuable, careless people are definitely going to try to take it. Second, you have to stop trying to be a lone genius. If you insist on micromanaging and doing everything yourself, you're just going to become exhausted, invisible, and frankly, replaceable. Third, learn to organize and delegate labor. Think about it. Kings don't personally pave their own roads or fight their own wars hand to hand. They organize people to do it for them. And finally, use the wisdom and ideas of the past. You literally don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time you start a project. Section 5. The danger of credit.
But hold on a second. Before you run out and start loudly claiming every single team win for yourself, you need to realize that power often requires serious patience. Taking credit too early or too aggressively can absolutely destroy trust, especially if your current position in the hierarchy is weak. Look at Henry Kissinger. He did an enormous amount of heavy lifting and behind-the-scenes work to open relations with China. But publicly, he stepped way back and let President Richard Nixon take all the glory. Why? Because Nixon was the boss. Stepping out of line and trying to steal the spotlight would have ruined Kissinger's position entirely. He knew that protecting his long-term influence was way more important than getting immediate public praise.
And this all brings us to a really fundamental clash of mindsets: fairness versus victory. Tesla desperately wanted the world to be fair. He just operated under the assumption that if he was the smartest guy in the room and worked the hardest, justice would naturally prevail and he'd get his reward. But Edison didn't care about fairness at all. He simply wanted to achieve victory. Edison completely understood that visibility, influence, teamwork, and strategic positioning are what actually win the game in the real world. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative final question for you to ponder today. Are you playing for fairness, or are you organizing for victory? History usually rewards the person who understands systems, influence, and perception. It very rarely rewards mere effort alone. I know it might sound a little cold or cruel, but it is disturbingly accurate. So take a really hard look at your own career or your own projects right now and ask yourself, are you acting like Tesla, just hoping your hard work will magically speak for itself? Or are you organizing, strategizing, and leveraging your way to victory like Edison?